Welcome back, DC Universe Classics fans. This is Scott, ToyGuru Neitlich. I was the brand manager at Mattel for the bulk of the 6-inch DCU Classics toy line. And this is a wave-by-wave, exclusive-by-exclusive, pack-by-pack review of that toy line and how awesome it was. And this was a really awesome wave. A lot of people think of Wave 7 as the Flash wave because, well, it had Barry Allen Flash in it. And this was actually before Barry Allen came back. He was dead at the time of this wave, at least in the comic books. But to me, and I think to Bill Benecke, who worked on it with me, he was the main designer, this was the let's do it wave, because the first 6 waves were basically scripted by DC and Warner Brothers. They laid out every character, every variant, who we were going to do. Because we were still, working on the relationship. And by Wave 7, we were on our own. They trusted us to know what we were doing, and that meant we got to choose the characters. And that's why, to me, this wave is kind of the Blue Beetle Booster Gold wave, because, man, Blue Beetle and Booster Gold are awesome. And at the time this wave came out, this was right around the time of the original 52 maxi series, mini-series? I don't know, it had 52 issues. It's a year long. What do you call that? And then Booster Gold had a follow-up comic right after that sort of, literally took place right after 52 and kind of tied up loose ends. He was just on fire. I mean, he was just awesome, and I was really into this character. So that was a big reason why Booster Gold and Blue Beetle got put into this wave. It was the first wave that we got to design from the ground up, and notice it doesn't have a Batman or a Superman in it, because this was past year 1, and we were kind of allowed to start going on our own. Because Warner Brothers is awesome like that. I mean, we had a great relationship with them. And they were very trusting as, we started getting to pick our own figures and our own releases. So one of the other ones we got to was Big Barda, who was sort of Mr. Miracle's main squeeze to complement the Mr. Miracle figure that we'd just done. And we did want a flagship character, which is why Flash was in this wave. I mean, Flash was, I think, one of the most requested figures before we got the master license. And this master license also meant we could get to Flash's villains, so Captain Cold. I mean, not this live-action Captain Cold, but Captain Cold got put in there. And we had the Aquaman repaint, and then topped off by Atom Smasher, who was our Build-A-Figure. And we even snuck in Mr. Mind, who was kind of an unofficial figure from Wave 7, because, we'll get to how he sort of got in there. But, yeah, love to have a Captain Marvel villain, right? All right, so let's talk about Flash first off. And actually, a big thing about Wave 7 was the pack-outs. We finally were really going all out with the pack-outs. So Flash was in his cool running pose. And that was really cool, because we had a lot more freedom to do stuff like that. And of course, a big question was which Flash to do. At the time, Wally West was the Flash for DC Universe. He was the Flash from the JLU animated series, and he had been around for about 20 years, since Crisis. And this was before Barry Allen came back. So I think almost about 5-6 years before he came back. But this was DCU Classics, and that being the name, it really was the idea to do the classic Flash first. And after all, I mean, Flash is a huge part of the DC Universe. It's because of Flash that we even have the multiverse. And the idea of, alternate characters and alternate DC Universe timelines, that all came out of the Flash of Two Worlds. I mean, we wouldn't even have a lot of these characters, or at least a rationale for how these characters fit into the DC Universe without that original multiverse comic. So, yeah, everyone needs lots and lots of different versions of Batman because he's awesome. And we have Flash to thank for that. So, Barry Allen Flash it is. Good old Blue Eyes. He became the first Flash that we did. And, yeah, I mean, when we just did DC superheroes with Batman and Superman, everyone was asking for Flash. And eventually we did get to Wally West and other versions of Flash. We did, different decos of him. He's a very popular character. We did metallic decos. We did New 52. We did the Jake Garrett, the original Golden Age Flash. I mean, we wound up doing a lot of Flashes, even if you want to count the evil Flashes like Zoom and the Injustice Gang. And a great way to complement Flash was to do his sidekick. And what was really great about this was it also gave us our teen buck. I did a video talking about that, about the different bucks you need in order to do a full sort of superhero toy line. And so this gave us, we now could make teenagers, basically. Maybe not these teenagers, but we could do teenage DC superheroes, which we wound up doing quite a lot of them, and this book was really useful. So it was great that we had it in our arsenal, shall we say. And again, the packouts were getting even better and even cooler, because, yeah, Warner Brothers and DC was a great partner. So to pair up with our dual Flashes, Kid Flash and Barry Allen Flash, of course we had our villain, and we wound up going with Captain Cold. The idea of, which villain to do. I mean, Flash, much like Batman, kind of has his own rogues gallery of really, really colorful villains. Doing Captain Cold, though, gave us sort of the mad scientist buck. It's not one of the bucks I outlined in the buck system, but it allowed us to do characters like Brainiac 5 here, which was great. I mean, anytime you can reuse a body, it's always good for tooling, because, like I've mentioned, tooling is, $20,000 to $100,000. Now, we had done Flash villains before. We did Gorilla Grodd back in Wave 2 as the Build-A-Figure. So having Captain Cold now at least was building up Flash's rogue gallery. But I do kind of feel like we did shortchange Flash in the end. We didn't get to as many rogue members as I think we kind of should have in the line. Some of these are customs here, which are very impressive. I can't do custom figures myself. Hats off to anyone who can do them. Next up, we had Aquaman. Now, again, we wanted to have some big names in each of the lineups, and Aquaman has had a lot of costumes over the years. And when Bill and I were looking over them, one that definitely stood out was kind of his 80s, I think it was called like camouflage armor, or aquaflage armor. I'm probably messing that up. But either way, it was very visually compelling, and honestly, it was an easy repaint. And sometimes you need figures that are logistically easier to make, meaning no new tooling, no new parts. We could use the existing accessory. And again, just visually, he was going to look really cool and look very different, and it helped add an A-list character. So, so we had a sort of aqua camouflage Aquaman rounding out Wave 7 as far as the heavy hitters. Heavy hitters. Speaking of a heavy hitter, Big Barda. Yeah, I mean, she's someone who's big and hits people. And she kisses people, too. Well, I mean, she kisses Mr. Miracle. So she's Mr. Miracle's kind of main squeeze in the New Gods Fourth World comics, and we'd just done Mr. Miracle in Wave 6. And it was really cool to do Big Barda. She actually had a variant, so she had helmet on and helmet off, and came with her control rod. And again, those packouts, we were really upping the game with the packouts this time, making sure the variants had very different looking packouts, again, so they would pop on shelf. So when you were flipping through the figures on shelf, you'd be able to quickly, easily recognize, that this was a figure you either did or didn't have. And that was, true of all the characters in this wave, but even the variants. So Big Barda, both variants got a different packout. And I think one of the things, though, that, it still bothers me even to this day, is that we didn't quite get the height right on her. She should have been bigger than Mr. Miracle, as far as, if you were putting them back to back. And this is one of those things that still keeps me up at night. I mean, not literally, but I really wish that we were able to do that. Next up, we had Blue Beetle. Well, not this Blue Beetle. We had this Blue Beetle, Ted Cord. Actually, not the original Blue Beetle. I guess the main Blue Beetle, not the Golden Age one and not the modern one. The one in the middle. So the one that teams up with Booster Gold. And gosh, Blue Beetle, I mean, he's just like your everyman Batman. He's got a flying beetle ship, and, he's got his light gun, and he's a fun figure. And he made a great action figure, and he's really cool paired up with Booster Gold. Whether you're a fan of them from Justice League International, or, even some of the time travel stuff that Blue Beetle was doing at the time these figures came out. It was really cool. And we got to do the goggles that I wish we did on Eradicator, where we were able, because we had more time, we could do the clear goggles, which we also did on Booster. Booster was another figure that had a variant, which is cool because we had modern and classic, and hey, they could team up because, time travel. And also had those clear goggles. Again, this was just because we had more time. Eradicator was kind of hurried to market to fill that Walmart need for Wave 5, and because Wave 7 had the full production timeline, we had the logistics and the time in place that we could actually do the clear goggles, which I was excited about. And there's Mr. Mine, inside of Skeets, with a K. For those of you wondering how Mr. Mine was going to wind up in this wave, so he's hidden inside of Skeets, Booster Gold's robot buddy, in the variant. In the modern version, he opens up. He's not in the classic version, and that was because Skeets in the 52 series, the original 52, not the new 52, like the DC reboot, but the 52 Maxi series that was running about this time, Mr. Mine, who is traditionally a Captain Marvel Shazam villain, here he is back in the Golden Age as the little worm that would be on his neck, he mutated into this giant monster mothy form and was hidden inside of Skeets for most of the series and then popped out at the end as kind of the mastermind behind the whole thing. So that's how we got a Captain Marvel villain into Wave 7 without even having Captain Marvel. And although my favorite take on Mr. Mine is the Wicked Worm that Eric Larson did for Savage Dragon when he kind of reimagined him and what he would be like if he became an entire supervillain. But I guess that's a YouTube video for another time. Go check out my Savage Dragon video to learn more about that. Alright, back to Wave 7. So rounding it out was our Build-A-Figure, which was Atom Smasher, which was kind of worked true to scale. He's a bigger guy, and this also allowed us to create kind of the giant, tall guy Buck. This Buck wound up being quite useful throughout the line. We were able to use it on quite a few Build-A-Figures, and he stood pretty tall. He's a smidge taller than Grundy, not as wide, but not supposed to be as wide, but definitely a figure that deserves the Build-A-Figure status. When compared to a regular figure, he's literally head and shoulders above the rest, which is great, because that's, it's nice when the Build-A-Figures are sort of the proper size. Not too small, not too big, just about right. And, yeah. That was Atom Smasher and DC Universe Classics Wave 7. Thanks for watching.